Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of Growth Secrets, the podcast where we deep dive into the strategies and insights powering today's fastest growing companies. I'm Yannick Kayati, and in each episode, I'll expose the unique growth and marketing secrets that let these businesses thrive. But today is a pretty different and special episode, since we're not going to expose the secrets behind one specific company. Our guest of the day is a real outbound legend. He has been building pipeline for many scale-ups all over the world. He's a Clay certified expert. He comes with different, creative, and often crazy workflows for automations. And most of all, he's a super nice and funny guy with a really strong opinion on growth tactics and go-to-market strategies. Welcome, Louis Vandommele.
Hi. Good morning. Damn, what an introduction.
Yeah, nice, nice. But Louis, while preparing this podcast, we already over the past week we had a couple of calls, and I have to say, yeah, these calls every time it almost felt like we were doing a podcast episode in every call. So for me, you're a typical person who gives like a lot of energy whenever you're in a conversation. So yeah, it's really nice to have you here. So let's try to talk slow because we both have the intention to tell a lot. So that's we're gonna keep that to the limits. And yeah, maybe before we dive in our conversation, can you tell our guests and listeners how a drummer ends up being a go-to-market expert? Because yeah, you're also a musician, right?
Yeah, and that's still like at heart. I'm still a musician, and that's still what I love, and that's still the passion. But yeah, first and foremost, thank you for the invite. I think it's funny how quickly this turned around, and also what you said. Like we had multiple calls, and then it was every time like, all right, we started 6 businesses, we started 7 businesses after one conversation. So that's funny. But yeah, my road is maybe not the most usual one. I think a very big play in there is the shift from, let's say, music towards GTM in like a SaaS company. And mainly my reasoning is COVID. I think I was fully focused on the musicianship and doing merchandise at big venues, etc. And then COVID hit, and obviously everything was done. So I got, for some reason, I ended up in the more B2B side of merchandise, and which was fun, learned so much, and got great opportunities there. And for me, it was like, okay, let's give this a try, because I felt like there's nothing else going on in the world, so might as well put my best effort in this area. And so I kept pushing it, and I kept learning, and I think it really accelerated with Outbound Catalyst now, with what I did with Olivier, and really learning the newest shit. Because I think for us, it's always, my drive is always to be playing Champions League, so to say, and really knowing what's the next 5 years of this area is going to be. And that really excites me. So that's kind of what keeps me pushing. And I see like the grind from the last year definitely really helped me accelerate in knowledge and like new tools and really understanding strategies more so than just being deep in one tool, for example.
Because indeed, you mentioned in COVID, all things were turned around and upside down. And yeah, you're basically self-taught and super resourceful. And now I stop with the compliments, by the way.
Yeah.
But you were saying like, I'm always looking 5 years ahead, which is super nice. And I think a lot of people in our industry, yeah, they are doing that. But what are some of the biggest shifts you are seeing in outbound strategies? Yeah, let's say for 2025, but also ahead of us. What are things that you see changing? Because to be really honest, a lot of people, they really dislike or even hate outbound because so many companies don't do it the right way, I guess. But yeah, curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's always like the struggle for terminology is one thing that I find very interesting. Like we had the phase where everybody was like, I'm a marketing leader, I'm a sales leader, I'm whatever type of leader, and we built this kind of silos, and which it made sense because in 2015 onwards to like 2020, like there was a lot of money because so we could build big teams, we had big managers, we had big whatever. But I think that's the massive shift that we're seeing today. Like the companies we work with are very early stage, and they have very small teams, and they also have like no intent of building out big teams. So that's the massive shift for me, is that like one person is going to have to do more. Obviously AI is going to help you a lot in there, but then the major shift in outbound is like, okay, is outbound still like a sales thing, or is it more of just like a growth thing? Is it more like, what are we doing here? So it's more like, we always come from a RevOps perspective, which is revenue operations, where it's like, okay, we need to have the most ROI out of every dollar spent, which actually makes sense if you think about it for everybody. But like outbound is often like the best ROI to start a business off, because you get not only you get conversations, you get market insights, and you get people talking about your brand. Whereas if you spend a lot of money, like let's say on ads or on SEO, which used to be more the way forward, like there's a lot of companies that built their empire that way, but that's just a lot harder these days because the market is even more crowded, and it's just you won't get as quick results as outbound gets you. The simplest thing for me is like, okay, how do you want to know if your product hits a certain pain? It's just take your phone and start calling, and you'll know actually what people think of your product. And that's the basis of outbound. Obviously, there's newer ways of doing things at scale, but that's still the what works the best in my opinion.
Yeah, and you say take your phone, indeed. Yeah, then you do it. Then you don't do it at scale, right? So that's something people forget. And like most people these days, they know outbound from all the LinkedIn messages clutter they receive, and that high first name with like a wrong initial or something in there, which is like really, yeah, it's really weird that people don't do a better job there. So there are so many things that you can optimize there, and that's what we're gonna expose today, I guess. And also, yeah, I think it's really funny. I was in your workshop a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was you who said, like, you also told it in the beginning of our conversation today. Yeah, all these companies, they tend to have big budgets, big teams, big managers, but not a big pipeline. And that's what it's all about. And sometimes we seem to forget that. That's my impression. But you also mentioned AI in there, like looking at big teams. What role do you see for AI there, and how do you see AI changing the outbound strategies of companies? We have tools like Clay that we're going to talk a lot about today, but tell us a bit more about how you use AI in.
Yeah, I think for everybody, it's AI is like the day to day now. It's really like the co-pilot as it is described is really how people start to understand it and really start to use it as well. Like for me, it's literally I see this as an extension of my brain, and every task that's like manually done and is like repetitively manually done, that is something that should be replaced by AI. And if you think about it that way, then a lot of the tasks in outbound are very repetitive. We still come across a lot of teams where it's like 10 people manually sending out every day the same message to different people. And then to me, that's crazy. So those tools like a Clay or like a Smart Lead or whatever that do those kind of sending at scale stuff really help you with that. And I think that's one of the major perks that we have. But just in creation alone, I think it's so nice to validate certain ideas and just to like you don't have like the biggest thing for me still AI is like erasing the empty page feeling. Like when you have to like start a campaign, it's just like, okay, how are we going to do this? And then with AI, you have your frameworks ready, you have your prompts ready, and you just start just some ideation, and you talk with the AI agent, and you just talk back and forth, and you just optimize, and then really know the strategy. And I think that's the biggest one to me is like the role is shifting to more. You have to be a technical profile, which is very true. I see a lot of people struggle with the technical aspects. Like there's so many tools, there's so many different tools, AI agents, whatever. But then the knowledge from a go-to-market perspective, like you have to have done the work yourself. Like I think that's still the case. Like please do the strategy first. And if you can't do it yourself, don't let AI fool you in thinking that you've done it. Because I think that's one of the main things that we hate kind of about the LinkedIn gurus. They say like, okay, we blast this amount of emails and we got this amount of responses and it's all going great. But then we think like, okay, responses do not equal meetings. That's a massive difference because sometimes you have to call them and sometimes you have to convince them because sales starts at a no. So that's a massive difference. And then also like, what's going to happen 3 months later? Like those people usually they blast out emails, 50K, 50K, whatever. The whole TAM is like cluttered, and then you're there, and then it's like, okay, we're done now. So we still have to be cautious of the fact that it's AI and it can scale a lot, but please know what you're doing and also know that certain strategies just won't hit. It's not going to happen. And if you would do it yourself manually and that's not working, then you should never automate it.
Yeah, because you can't pay the bills with impressions, right? That's how it goes. And indeed, a lot of interesting things. I want to touch upon one thing, like the personalization part. I think many tools are, jumping on that train. But how do you see that? Because a lot of companies, I think 99% still don't go beyond like the first name, company name, personalization fields. How do you see? You told me about some really crazy workflows that you're using, but what's next there? Where are we going?
I think a lot of like the new software that's coming out is very high on the triggers. Like they call it triggers, which is for me, personalization versus relevance is something totally different. Like personalization, people were like looking at somebody's LinkedIn profile and say, oh, he likes cats. I'm going to make a message that revolves around cats. But to me, that's pointless. That has nothing to do with your message, like the pain you're solving. That's just like you trying to be funny or whatever. That's something we would never do. Something totally different is relevance. And that's like based on the triggers. But it's interesting because like you have to use a relevant trigger. Because half of the companies now is like new in role, merger acquisition, people have been in the role for this amount of time, which is the most used triggers. And then we just get the same results that we used to have, which is like when you start a new role as a sales leader, you'll get at least like 100 messages the next day saying, hi, you just started this role. Maybe you should look at this. And then it also like defies the purpose. So what we try to find is like really find those triggers. And usually you can find them in conversations. Like if you have conversations with your customers, like what was the actual buying reason or what was the trigger point in your organization that made you say like, okay, we need this or this solution. That's the type of triggers you have to find. And you can come up with cool stuff. Like for examples, we have tried to find like all the ad libraries of companies online. Like for example, if you work with a growth team and they try to know, okay, are these people running ads, yes or no? So we try to scan the LinkedIn ads, the Google ads, the Facebook ads, and we see, okay, this ad library, is it full, yes or no? And we base the messaging there on that specific thing, which is already a little bit more advanced and is also very relevant to the solution they are offering. Because if you're a growth team selling ads and you say like, okay, I see you're running LinkedIn ads, but they're not optimized in this and this manner, and you can do that at scale, that's very, very nice. And I think that's showing relevancy, but also relevancy to the pain you're solving for that person. It's not just saying like, hi, your birthday was yesterday. Maybe you should think about an AI sales tool, which does not make sense.
And yet companies do it.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Which is indeed, it makes no sense, but hey, here's your birthday, time for a new CRM. Amazing. A word that comes back a lot when I hear you talking is like scale. And I think whenever people think about outbound, yeah, it really goes hand in hand with scale. But how do you personally balance the volume of the messaging you send with the quality in the outbound outreach? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
In my opinion, we're a lot closer to what was traditionally A/B testing in advertising, in terms of outbound, because like the interfaces of the tools are also a lot more similar than they used to be towards like A/B testing in let's say adverts. So that's interesting to see that change and that shift in the tooling as such. But I think that's the main reason on how we approach scale. First, test batches of let's say 100 emails, 150 emails, and really A, B, C, D, different copies, different angles, different triggers, and you see what hits. You can validate really quickly. Like you can see the difference definitely in those tools. You see the difference. Like okay, oh wow, message B type 2 really hits the spot and really converts so much better than the other one, and that's when you put the volume to it. We will never put like, I think it's the worst thing you can do is just say like, okay, this is one copy we have, all right, let's use it for 5,000 emails and let's hope for the best, and in 3 months we'll discuss whether this was a good campaign, and then we can actually not do anything anymore because we can't iterate, because we used up all the time that we have available. So I think scale, yes, definitely. But first, try to do it A/B test small things, just like you would do in any other type of advertising. And it's the same thing. Like it's the same mindset. It's just like some messages hit and like some words hit and some words can be just shifted. It's still a game, and there's no
It's no science, no exact
yeah,
science.
there's no magic formula to a good
Yeah.
message. There's obviously better stuff and less good stuff, but we've seen like examples where we did the most complex trigger shit and where it was like, yeah, you hired this person and we see this and this and this, and then they were just not answering. And then the email that worked the best was just the most general email saying like, hi, we do this and we solve this. And that was the one that really did well. So it often is this way, or it could be the total opposite way.
So there's no granite formula or something. There's no silver bullet or whatever they call it in growth terminology. And you basically always start from like a blank page, and you have to test everything all over again. That's what I understand, right?
Yeah, I think the most important is, do you understand your product, one, and do you understand your customer? And that's always going to be the start of any growth or any business, to be honest. Like, do you understand what you're solving for who? And then you can start from there. But that's my beef a little bit with some of the gurus. They come in from a certain angle and they made their money on a certain angle, and then that's the only angle they play. But that's not how it usually works. There's no one size fits all in growth tactics.
It's nice how you refer to them as gurus. I hear the respect when you say it. Amazing. Maybe to build a little bit further on the volume versus quality discussion, like what are like some good conversion rates? Is there a one fits all where you say like is there a benchmark like 1% or something, or how should I look at it? Because yeah, obviously I've done a lot of this. Like, for example, with one of the companies I'm currently working with, Trent, also Ghent-based enterprise software company, we're doing a lot of outbound and we're seeing some success. We're building pipeline, but compared to the volume of messages we are sending, yeah, of course, the response rate is super low. What should we aim for? What's like, when are we successful?
I think it's a hard conversation because it really depends on the solution you're selling and to who you're pitching. Yeah, if you're, for example, selling sales software to sales leaders, good luck these days, just because in terms of that. But just to give some benchmarks, I think one, don't track open and click rates. That's the first one, just from a deliverability standpoint. So that's already a shame because you don't know half of the stuff. Like the half of the stuff is gone. And then also track bounce rate. So keep the bounce rate low, let's say below 1.5 to 3%. And then from a response rate, I think between 2 and 5% responses is actually good. We often get campaigns, if we really optimize them, where we are like between 10, 15%, which is very, very high, and we're very happy. And then that doesn't mean that they're all positive, right? That's just responses. That means that you have a batch to work on because we also work on negative responses, or like gray zone responses, we call them, where it's like yes, but, or no, but, because that's where sales happens, in my opinion. But I think those are kind of benchmarks that prove that they are good. Whereas like in the past, you could have sequence where you have like, I have 50% response. I mean, to be honest, definitely if you're early stage and you're just starting out, email at scale, that's just not a realistic expectation.
And is there a difference between Europe and the US, for example? Because a lot of measuring the stuff is about tracking, of course. And yeah, I remember I told you about it years ago. We had like, yeah, we sent big batches, and we had like an iframe with a fake LinkedIn profile in there just to see like who visits the profile. Yeah, these days are over, of course, unfortunately, because then, yeah, you can track one on one who actually opens and visits the page. But do you see a difference there? Is there still a lot more possible in the US? They don't know about GDPR, which is still crazy, but
Yeah. Well, to me, the massive difference is usually their TAMs are so much bigger. So if they send out, would send out 5,000 emails, they can send out 50,000. And then if 2% response on 50,000, obviously you'll build a larger pipeline. So I think that's one thing. The sheer volume in the US is so much bigger than usually, like startups in Belgium. It's so funny if I say this, but like everybody's prospecting to the same 500
yeah,
companies. Like everybody's
max
just sending towards each other.
500.
Yeah,
Already a
that's
lot.
it. Yeah, because they talk about Belgium, but actually it's just Flanders, and then it's just like, okay, let's not send to this, and this region, and then everybody's
And
sending
in
to all the
Brussels,
same
half
companies.
of it speaks French, so skip it.
Yeah, so we don't have a sales that speaks French, so we're just gonna disregard that region totally. So that's one thing, and obviously the GDPR thing. I think definitely the evolution and where it's going. Like in the Netherlands, you're not allowed from a Dutch company to send emails at scale to other Dutch companies. And also, if we send out to the Netherlands, for example, you get a lot more like harsh reactions where they're like, "This is not allowed," like GDPR, blah blah blah, which is such a gray zone GDPR, and it's like it's not very clear to everybody what is possible and what is not possible. But I think that's a major shift. So it's definitely true that compared to the US, where it's just like, okay, you can blast emails at scale and you'll have a lot more results just of the volume. In Europe, the markets individually are so different, like Belgium compared to the Netherlands, but then also the UK is totally different. So even Germany is totally different. So I think it still works, but again, you have to really understand the market you're selling towards and really understand like that buyer in that market. And that's just a massive shift. But then also, I think you have to see it differently. Like, what are you doing? If you send a relevant email to a relevant buyer at a relevant time, and maybe they don't answer, but at least they see your message, and then it's just a part of brand awareness. And if it's part of brand awareness, it's actually the cheapest channel there is, because then it's an advertising channel, and you don't pay a CPC or you don't pay whatever. You just pay a freelancer or the tool that's using it. So
Exactly.
if you see it like that, it's a totally different approach.
Yeah, and that's like a super interesting take to approach it like brand awareness, especially part of it, your initial outreaches, because like every founder or everyone who thinks about outbound, they really all want to go to conversion from the first email or message you sent. But yeah, that's not how it works. There is like a lot of these memes on LinkedIn that there is a guy on the toilet and there are like a lot of toilets, and then one guy comes standing next to them because all the other toilets are empty, and he says like, can I sell you a LinkedIn course or something? Like,
Yeah,
and that's actually how it feels. So it's it's super super weird, but
yeah. I
yeah,
think
really like.
the messages also changed. Like we used to be more of like, okay, do you want to have a chat or does it make sense to talk? Now it's more of like, do you want to have a feedback round? We want to get you on a podcast first. We want to have that conversation first, which to me makes a lot more sense because, like, for example, you'll definitely know if you sell software to enterprise, for example, and you're a nobody, like the trust is so low in what you do that they won't even have that conversation just because you're a nobody. You don't have the right references. You don't have like the brand, or you're not like a, they won't invest in you because they don't have like the trust that you can deliver on that extent. So that's like a major thing that you have to still go towards. And then what you can do is like start with like trust building by having those just low profile conversation where it's asking for feedback, asking about the pain, asking about relevance, rather than just saying like, yo, we made this tool, maybe you want it.
Yeah, I'm currently also running one, and I think I already told you about it, but I'm super proud about it because it's like, yeah, I'm using Outbound to do like validation for community. I'm currently considering launching, and what I see there is, yeah, I build like a form with Tally, and I send it to people cold, and I just ask them for 2 minutes of their time to fill in the form. I emphasize that I don't want to sell them something yet, and ask for their feedback, and I see like, yeah, a huge response rate. To be honest, I'm super surprised that so many people are taking the time to fill it in, and people really want to help, and you put them in a position like, yeah, you're the expert and you can give me some knowledge. And like a lot of people like that position. Yeah, that's good. Asking for feedback always works to open the door, in my opinion. So really high response rate.
Yeah,
More
yeah,
than
true.
5%. So that's
Let's go. Let's go.
nice, nice. So yeah, I'm a bit proud of it.
As you should. As you
Yeah,
should.
yeah, but yeah, so that's like a small workflow, of course. But can you give us an example of like, yeah, a workflow that you use with tools like Clay? Because yeah, we've mentioned Clay a couple of times. I think yeah, you're like more a power user of Clay, which is basically for the people who don't know it. It's like, yeah, I think a spreadsheet on steroids or something, or how should I describe it? You can enrich it with data from all kinds of sources. Can you give us an example of a workflow that you use and how it goes? And yeah,
Yeah,
you
we
can
use it.
last example, please.
Make an advanced example. Damn, I don't know what the skill level is of people in general, but I think we use it on a daily, and I think it's such a very nice like tool to really use multiple data sources to validate certain data found. And I think that's very nice. And also use AI at scale in a spreadsheet on a very convenient way. Because all the Clay haters say it's just a spreadsheet on steroids, which it actually is. But it's also so nice to have all those tools available in a credit form within another tool, so you don't have to pay for every single license separately. So that's first and foremost. And then advanced workflow. Let me think. Mm, I think just the basic of how we kind of map out a TAM of a company, like a total addressable market, is pretty advanced, to be honest, because we don't usually, if I talk to people, they're like, oh yeah, we use Apollo or we use Sales Navigator or whatever, and that's fine. But we usually use all of the available data sources. So we will, if we want to map out a TAM of a company, we will always try to find lookalike companies. Like say you have 10 customers, okay, fine. We'll start with those 10 customers. We'll find lookalike companies with a Panda Match or like an Ocean or whatever tool you use for lookalike companies. That's going to be the start, and then you'll gradually grow that 10. So from 10 companies, you might have 100 companies. Then next phase is, okay, we see common denominators in those companies. Let's put these in Apollo. Let's put these in SalesNav and really grow the scale of this like total addressable market that we can find. And then the next step also is we use AI agents to really find lookalikes based on AI search. which is a bit complex. We usually use like a Claude, for example, because I really like Claude, the interface, and just talking to Claude in general is a lot more fun than a GPT, in my opinion. So we use that to find other lookalikes and really say like, okay, visit the website, do Google search, look at the news, look at LinkedIn, look at all these sources and find companies that resemble this, and this ICP criteria. And so that's only just to make the TAM bigger and bigger. And maybe you'll end up with like 5,000, 6,000 companies, depending on in what vertical you're sourcing your clients, obviously. And then it starts with like, okay, you have this big group of people. Let's now make it smaller and make it really, really relevant. And that's where the magic really happens, in my opinion, is where you can use Claude and AI agents to really map out that ICP and say, okay, these are the basic criteria, like countries we're in, how big are the employees, whatever, just basic stuff that you can do in SalesNav as well. But then also say like, okay, let's build an AI agent and let them search. These are the keywords we're looking for. These is kind of the way this stuff should be phrased. Or we go even more advanced. We look at the, let's say the annual report of a company, which is usually available on the website. And you have to find this and this subject in this. In there, or like they have to talk about AI in their report because that's relevant for what we're sourcing.
Right?
Yeah, that's pretty advanced, and that's pretty cool because that's actually, and then you'll think more about like a go-to-market engineer, which is what we like to call it, which is where like you're engineering a TAM and you're engineering a data clean room, and I think that's something that's very nice. Like obviously it's a spreadsheet on steroids, but it's also a data clean room, and then your total addressable market is living in this data clean room, which is not directly in the CRM, but it should be good if it's linked towards the CRM. And you can always update it as well. So you have it in real time and you can always work on it. And that's just to find companies. So we're only on that aspect. Maybe we should a separate course to find then the context within those companies, because then we elaborate even more on that aspect as well.
For the people listening, by the way, the TAM, which we're continuously referring to, that's total addressable market, which in the US is actually much bigger than in Belgium or Europe. Yes, just so you know. And maybe also like with this podcast, we can give people like buzzword bingo cards or something, because it's like
that's my life. That's my life.
Data clean room, etc. Like we keep going, so that's super nice. So I already can imagine a couple of people that are gonna refer to it as a buzzword bingo. But like, yeah, really, really interesting. Data, of course, is like the central part of it. And yeah, when I look back, yeah, I've been doing growth marketing services and workshops for many years. I remember like 2016, 2017, when we were doing like the first series of workshops, we always had to check like, yeah, whenever we did a workshop, are the tools still alive? Didn't they go bankrupt, or some of them were side projects and then they were taken offline, etc. But now with Clay, which is really crazy, yeah, they raised over $100 million in funding over the past 6-7 months, like over $1 billion in valuation. Yeah, I think it's safe to say they are here to stay. And yeah, you also see like the maturity in the software is also like really increasing, and that's like super nice. It's no longer like two guys in a garage who are building like some shady software. Yeah, we're past these days, and that's, I think, like a really, really good thing to put it on the map in companies of all sorts and all sizes.
Yeah, no, true. I think, yeah, we still have those. We still have the one-man SaaS companies that are solving even smaller value propositions, which is interesting to see that evolution. But on the other hand, you get more and more of like a tailor-made, holistic kind of approach, which is what I call Clay in a sense, where everybody can really use the tools they only need for their specific verticals and specific buyers. So that's very nice. But I also see it more like the evolution, like we talked with the AI expert at Loop as well, and the way he's approaching it is even more interesting, because then we really move towards like a space where, okay, you have your data silos, which is one aspect, and then you have different agents that are like marketing agents, that are sales agents, that are project management agents, and they just interact with the data on various spaces. And I think that's kind of where we are going to in the future, which is also something we talked about, like the evolution into going without a CRM, or like at least like CRM as we know it. And I think that's a very interesting like evolution as well. So yeah, it's
That's,
cool.
I think, your most bold statement that I've heard you say. It's like, yeah, we're going towards, CRM-less future or something. Yeah, it's super bold, but yeah, I can also imagine it somehow. Like you see tools like Donna, for example. Yeah, of course they integrate with a CRM, but yeah, it's also an interface where yeah you can talk to in the phone, and yeah, your CRM gets up to date. And yeah, let that be the problem with a lot of CRMs. I also see it with a real estate company I currently work with. Yeah, they have HubSpot as a CRM, but yeah, the brokers, they don't update it enough. So you're working with outdated data, and that's yeah, of course that's not a good thing. But tools like Donna, yeah, they are, I think, the first step towards a CRM-less future. I'm not gonna say that, but yeah, you see that things are shifting in that
Yeah,
category.
I think I won't call it CRM less, but it's definitely a different version. It's like manual entry will hopefully be gone, and we actually have the tools to do it. Like you mentioned, Donna, but like conversational intelligence is so far ahead already that you can basically say like a human, for example, where you track emails, where you track conversational intelligence. Basically, all the interactions with a customer are tracked automatically. So they should be living in the backend. So the AI has just like they're learning, like the LLM is like building, and then the AI can just like tell you, okay, we need this and this information out of this like full deal cycle. Okay, just like put an agent in front of it and let it talk to that and let it talk in that way. Which is, and my biggest thing is like, okay, what is a CRM? So it used to be spreadsheets, which is fine. Like people manually enter spreadsheets, and then a CRM is spreadsheet with dependent properties based on like a dashboard. And that created like this whole market of like middle management and managers every day having to push people saying like, you have to update this, update that. And hopefully we can like move past it. And which is the most interesting thing is like older salespeople or like people that are very good at the selling part and less good at the admin part are becoming better again. And that's a very nice evolution. Like it's more about like the human connection. And for example, like I've seen stuff in human where Charlotte showed us like, okay, in the conversation it was very important, like the cat of this specific buyer had a surgery or whatever, or like it was the birthday of her son, and even the AI would put it in the CRM. I've never seen a dependent property in HubSpot saying that the cat of a certain person had a surgery, and the AI picks it up. So it even the social dimension of selling and like the relationship building is coming back so much more if like a CRM is just like pushed to the back end, where in my opinion it's just going to be a data clean room, which is like a data silo, and nobody should be in there. It should be always updated, it should be always be clean, and that's just the go-to-market engineer. He's the only person that works in there, and then all the other stuff is like conversational intelligence based on email and based on conversational intelligence in meets or in a Donna setting or whatever you want to use, and that should result in like an AI agent where you just can interact with it and just talk to it and ask like, okay, give me Q3 sales reports, and the agent is just going to give you that because you don't have to manually build it again.
Yeah, like it's also yeah it's true, and I think it's one of the biggest needs in sales administration. I guess a person who's typically good in selling, yeah, doesn't like to do administration. I think that's yeah that goes quite hand in hand. But like I also see like a lot of good AI agents coming there, and agents, yeah, it's like another buzzword these days. I think it's already the most common buzzword of 2025, and yeah, we're still January. So that's weird, but like for example, I found like a really good one there, Granola AI. I don't know if you already saw it, but it's like one of these meeting voice recorders. But yeah, where you usually have like a bot joining the meeting or the call. It's this one doesn't join, and he just records. He makes a transcript, and yeah, the quality of the output he gives you, like the next steps, the summary of the call. Yeah, I've never seen it. I'm not a super good note taker. Yeah, this is like really crazy.
Yeah, I think definitely in that space there's a lot that are making progress, which is crazy. Like I'm in Dutch, I'm very like I have a very strong accent, and I we use Lexi internally, which is a Belgian tool, which I would definitely recommend. And they are even good in picking up my accent, which makes me very happy to see. So and also like numbers, etc. It's just it's insane. It's insane.
We're back, so I guess I will have a little bit editing to do, but let's pretend this didn't happen. Yeah, it kicked me out. Maybe I was because I was talking about the agent, but I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
You talk about another conversation intelligence,
Yeah,
and he's
and
like,
crazy,
no.
the agent took over. That was really weird. So I got kicked out, and the agent took over. So that's yeah, agents. We might not be there yet, but
Yeah, we might, but that's definitely true. Like the security aspect of this whole thing and like where is the data going is such a big question, which I'm like, I'm not really focused on that aspect of things, but I know like bigger companies and definitely like more so like people that are a bit more experienced are so afraid of like what's happening with privacy, data, etc., as they should be, because it's crazy that we're all working for these like three American companies and that's it. But yeah, that's interesting.
it's super interesting, and yeah, and now you have DeepSeek coming out of nowhere, to be honest. And yeah, you also see like a lot of theories, yeah, about Chinese government, etc. So yeah, it will be an interesting next couple of months, I guess. And like now, for the first time ever, I have like the feeling it's going really fast now, and like it's going really fast. Like for example, this week DeepSeek appears out of nowhere, and Nvidia stock got hit by 500 billion market cap. So it's yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, to keep up to date, and yeah, to stay ahead of the curve. Yeah, for the first time ever, I feel like you have to work for it. It's
Yeah, but
crazy.
that's one aspect, and that's definitely something I live by. Like it's something that we always have the feeling like I'm not up to date anymore. I'm not up to date anymore. And then the good thing is sometimes I have conversations with people that have like way more established businesses, like let's say in construction or whatever. They have so much revenue annually, so they do very well for themselves, and they are still doing pen and paper. So we cannot underestimate the fact that we're doing this for the top 1% of people still, which is a good thing. They'll have to evolve in this manner for sure, but like still like that relaxes me. That's just like,
Yeah.
okay, this is still the top 1%, and I'll be able to live of this like knowledge for the rest of my life if I don't improve anymore, because like people are still like getting HubSpot for the first time, are still seeing like, let's say, outbound at scale for the first time. So that's great.
Yeah, there's a story of Fernand Hutz, owner of Knassi, which is like yeah, quite a big company. And I don't know if it's true, or whether it's a myth, but he apparently his secretary prints out all the emails he receives. He writes with pen on paper. He writes an answer, and she types it and sends it. So it's yeah, I think it's good to say we're safe so far.
Yeah, we're safe for sure.
We're more than average digital savvy.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Okay, yeah, I think we still have a lot to discuss, but yeah, let's see where we go, and we're not gonna take it too long. Maybe events. You also had an interesting take on like scraping data from events for prospecting. Can you tell us a bit more about that? How do
Yeah,
you turn an event attendee in a booked meeting, for example?
yeah, I think that's one of my learnings is like a lot of the more old school approaches in manufacturing or just those rudimental industries are so heavily event reliant. So I was really looking at how can we make a play with clay that really helps people finding the right person. So we use a tool called Instant Data Scraper. It's free. It's just like a Chrome extension, and it scrapes stuff on a website. So we would go to, let's say, like now it's Batibo, for example, a big construction fair in Belgium. You would go, you would look at the exhibitors, and we just let Instant Data Scraper, the Chrome extension, you say like, okay, let's go scrape this list, and he would scrape all attendees that are available, which is super nice. And then you have a CSV available with like a name and hopefully some other stuff. And that's a starting point for Clay to work its magic. And I think that's really nice if you use it that way. If you have a name and you can find stuff online, you can do it at scale. So that's great. So we upload a CSV into Clay. We then enrich it to the company domain, the LinkedIn profile, etc. And we really map out those companies, and we really find like, okay, these are all the companies that are going to be attending and have a booth at that fair. And then we obviously use our own ICP criteria depending on the company you work with, and try to enrich it. And then you can find contacts as well. And the cool thing is, we use that play for people that don't attend fairs, that will attend fairs. It doesn't really matter, but you can use that data source so well to just say, I'm like, even if you're not attending, oh, you're going to this fair in Frankfurt. Oh, that's very nice of you. And then the play is just like, if you're open to having a coffee before or after the fair, I'm willing to have a chat about this and this topic. And they'll be so much more open to have that conversation, because usually it's like lone people that have to go to that fair or that event. And if you're there, great, have that coffee and do it. But if you're not there, even then you say, oh shit, I missed you. I might have gone to that seminar just in time, but here is my meeting link. Let's put in a meeting.
Yeah.
And even if you're not attending, it's just a great way to get like conversation started, because people really want to have like, because you have the trust of this person actually exists and I would have seen them in real life. It's just a great like bridge to have a digital meeting, for example.
Yeah. And like, what are your thoughts there? Because I think, yeah, we're speaking a lot of emails, cold emails, but what are your thoughts on like multi-channel sequences? Do you add in like LinkedIn steps or any other channels? Curious for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our thing mainly is to go email first if we have the email available. If you don't have the email available, you obviously have the LinkedIn most of the times, and then you just like mix and match. We usually do like a batch on LinkedIn and then a batch on email, and we see what performs better. And then if one channel really outperforms another channel, we double down on the channel that works best. And then don't forget to follow up with calls, for example. If you get any gray zone answers, you should always include phone calls. I think it's so underused. Definitely if people say no, but, and then they leave their footer with their phone in there. It's such an easy conversation because you have something to talk about. You say like, okay, you have this software now. How is that going for you? And then there's just like, that's not a cold call. That's just like an open conversation about feedback on a specific tool. So I think those three are very, very relevant. And then other channels might include like maybe, yeah, we get people doing crazy stuff. We have people like sending out letters, for example. Like we had a client where it was like, okay, we want to send a Christmas card plus an email plus a LinkedIn message. And that's really multi-channel because then it becomes a physical touch point as well, which is GDPR, a little bit tricky. But yeah, you can go as wild as you want. But my thing is always, if you have a channel that works best, definitely if you're early stage, this is an early stage thing. If one channel works best, perfect it and double down on that one channel. Don't try to, I don't like seeing companies where it's like, oh, we do outbound, we do SEO, we do ads, we do this, and everything is done poorly, and you pay one person for each channel, and every channel is not profitable. So my thing is like, okay, if you have one channel working really well, go for that channel.
But like if you talk about like calling or sending letters, etc., yeah, you only do that once there is an intent, I assume, or do you also do
Yeah.
like big batches?
No. That we do if there's a certain intent signal, but that can be low threshold. Like calling low threshold could really be like, okay, we see them answering like, okay, for the moment we have this software, so we're not interested. That's for me an intent signal. That's like knowing, okay, let's have a conversation and see where the door opens. Maybe in 6 months they have to renegotiate that contract. Then we can do a demo, because then that conversation in 6 months is going to be so much easier than it would be if you haven't spoken to that person before. So yeah, that's the type of, that's very low intent, but it's really important, I think, to follow up on those.
At least there is an intent, yeah. Okay, a couple of weeks ago, I saw like a really nice podcast episode with Elena Verna. She was part of Lenny's podcast, and I think the topic was super interesting. They were talking about 10 things that never work for growth, which is like an interesting point of view. People always want tactics that really work. She said these things, yeah, they don't work, never. What's the one or two things that never work when it comes to outbound?
I think being absent on LinkedIn for me is the worst one. If you're a CEO and you're a VC backed CEO, let's say somebody paid you $1 million to get this idea to market and you're not even posting on LinkedIn, I think that's crazy. Yeah. And then also like outbound people and growth people and marketing people that have no conversations with clients. I think that's the worst one as well. And that happens a lot more than you would think. Like where the marketeer is like, they only talk to the sales and like, how is that conversation going? How is that conversation going? But like maybe set up a client meeting and have a conversation with those people. So that for sure. And then the spray and pray, I think that never works. Like even you might think like, okay, I have 100,000 emails and maybe one person is going to answer. Yeah, no, it's not going to work. You'll be spam city and that's going to be it. And then you'll burn your full,
Nice one.
yeah, you burn your whole domain and that's just the end of it. So these three maybe would be my not to do's.
Like talking about spam city, deliverability is also like a big topic of which we can probably do like a separate
Yeah.
podcast someday. But like to just to discuss the basics, what do people need to take into account when it comes to email deliverability? Yeah, I know there's like it requires a very technical setup, but can you give us some basics to get people started there?
First thing, it's not a science and it's continuously evolving. I think that the updates are so rapid behind one another. It's Google and Outlook, they both decided, let's make this very hard on people. First thing is if you send out disproportionately amount of emails towards from a certain account, from a certain domain, and you get not a lot of responses back, that will increase the spam of that specific domains. So what do? We always use alternative domains to send out emails from. Also, we pre-warm those inboxes. What does that mean? Basically, you use a tool like a Lemwarm has that, but like there's a lot of tools that use the Mailscale has that as well. I think I don't know the name, but never mind. So where you can just like send emails towards each other, and that basically helps to warm up the domain, and that way it gets less prone to end up in the spam. So that for sure is also a good thing. Never track stuff, so no links, no tracking open rates, no tracking click rates, because every time you track something, it will be detected as spam, which means no HubSpot sequences, no like Mailchimp stuff. That stuff is all gone. Like we see examples where it still works, but then that's because like over time they sent so many emails, and also because they had so many answers on those emails. But like now it really like fell off. Like we see people like where the full like newsletter play really like collapsed, and that's just because of that. Like because they are tracking stuff, and then it has like a tracker with the email just to know who opened it and who clicked on stuff. So these are like basic stuff. And then also from a copy perspective, make sure to use spin tags. Spin tags is where you alternate every word or every sentence within the email. So it has like it's hard to say that in words, but like we can show it how it looks like. Maybe we can set it under the podcast how it looks, which is like use spin tags and don't use spam words in the copy. And use flat text only. I think that's some of the rules that are now in play, but it's a lot more complex than that.
And it's a lot of work, right? It's not like just
Yeah.
scraping a list and sending an email real quick. No, it's becoming like like a very mature channel. And if you want to stand out, it really requires to level up your also your technical knowledge.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. And it also makes me think about like email at scale as a channel. Like it really makes me question that channel because you have to be so technically advanced to have this limited amount of results, which is like, is that really worth it? Kind of. So it really depends on the situation
You're not
where I would
selling it
say,
right now.
yeah, I'm not selling it, but that's fine. Like it's like for me, it's go to market. So like revenue is always key. So if it doesn't bring in the revenue that it should bring for the price point it's at, then you should try a different strategy.
Okay. Maybe final question on the outbound part, or one of the final questions probably. Like if you have to build like an outbound setup from scratch these days, high level, what would your tech stack look like?
For us, from a data tool and data enrichment, like we use Clay for all data, but if you want to do it cheaper, maybe you can use like a sales navigator, but it's not thorough enough in my opinion. Like, and it's also very fast outdated and you'll find stuff that is not relevant. So I would use Clay there. In enrichment, we use Better Contact, which is from Romain, a very nice guy. He uses waterfall enrichment to find email addresses and phone numbers. So waterfall enrichment is basically that you use multiple data providers to find a specific email. And he also uses zero bounce or unbounce. So he will test the email whether it bounces yes or no.
So
So that's for like the
to be precise, you don't do the email enrichment in Clay.
well, it's cheap. It's cheaper if you use Better Contact, but you can use the API as well in Clay.
Okay.
But we usually use Better Contact because we know him very well and we support the people. So that's like from the data's perspective. Then the email stuff, we have our very own guy. He's called the email wizard, which is
name.
like that's a service that we're that's a good name. That's a service that we're providing to people as well. But he's like a really wizard on like the email setup. But you can use basic SMTPs like there's Mailscale and whatever you have, but they are also like getting burned, so it's not easy. And then from a sender's perspective, you can use Lemlist if it's like multi-thread LinkedIn and email, which is fine. But you have the same in like Expandy is also good. HeyReach for the LinkedIn part, and then for email we use Smartly because I like the UX, but Instantly is also nice. Or you can use a Woodpecker. We've seen that as well. So it really depends on. There's so many, which is nice because there also need to be many. Because if somebody is like overusing one tool, that means like the sending is gonna be again into spam. So it's good to iterate as well. We usually use different ones for different clients. It really like we try to stuff out. But my thing is like data-wise, Better Contact Clay. Email infrastructure wise, you can use a Mailscale, but we have our own stuff that is like the secret stuff. And then for sending, it's like Lemlist on LinkedIn and Smartlead on email. That's kind of what we do.
And like a final tip, never use your main domain.
Yeah, for sure. Never use it.
So many
And also
people
for
do that.
people watching, go and check out your main domain reputation right now and see what's happening there. That you know how is it going and are we burning stuff? Yes or no?
Yeah, because you, especially when the startup is growing and it's getting bigger, and you work with like a lot of, second or third generation growth hackers. Yeah, you never know what tools they use, and it can be tricky. Been there.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of cowboys in the scene, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, what else do we need to discuss? The deliverability, we had it. Maybe I want to tap into one more thing, dark social. You mentioned mapping out dark social in Clay. How do you do that? And maybe for the listeners or the people who are watching, can you explain a little bit about what dark social is?
Yeah, for me, dark social is the main space where buying decisions are invisible for people to find. And for example, what is dark social? It's LinkedIn groups, it's Facebook groups. Like if you're in HR in Belgium, Facebook groups is where it happens. It's like blogs, bigger blogs, it's newsletters, it's all those kind of spaces that are very hard to track who interacted with those. But those are really where the decisions happen. Like I'm in a couple of like we are sales, better growth, whatever. The question that get asked there, if somebody asks about a specific tool and the response of the community is like, no, it's shit, I can guarantee you that person is never going to buy that tool. And that's how crazy it is. Like you can literally do anything outbound wise that people, it's just like the trust is gone because like his peers or her peers said like it's not good enough. So I think it's very important to like map out the dark social, and you can actually do it. Like we developed a prompt like in GPT and in Claude where you say like, okay, map out for this vertical, let's say robotics or HR or whatever, map out all blogs, map out all LinkedIn profiles that are relevant to follow, which is like groups, but also people, etc. And also on different YouTube channels, all multiple sources. We kind of map them out and then we put them in Clay. We again, CSV wise, you put them in Clay and then you start looking at, okay, can you map out the latest posts? Can you map out the latest information that they're talking about? And we're really trying to find like, okay, what are the topics that are hitting with our buyer audience at this time? And that's kind of what you want to know. And that's what you can use in your outreach, use in your own content, use in your own blogs, whatever. But really know, okay, is this a topic that my buyer is really thinking about today instead of like just like randomly pushing a specific topic at a specific moment?
Yeah, because you also use these insights to create content with AI, right?
Yeah. We developed our own tool, which is going to market really soon, where we exactly do this motion. So because I found like a lot of people use content and they say like, oh yeah, I use GPT to write my content, but my thing is like, what is the source of your content and what is your writing style? So those two things we wanted to combine, and we built it in Clay. So where the sources are like those dark social stuff, and then also the way to write the post is based on what you like. Like we make an analysis of your previous post, and then also like writing styles you think are very nice for LinkedIn posting. And those two combined like result into posts that you can use for your own social.
Okay, I have some quick fire questions to wrap up this episode. So if it's okay for you, I'll quickly go through them. What's your big bet for 2025?
Big bet, smaller teams, that for sure, and growth leads that has to know every aspect of growth and not just one aspect of growth. Like for example, not just SEO, but everything growth related.
So every marketing team that sees you enter the room, that they need to be really scared.
No, I'm here to help.
Okay. Okay, what's your favorite marketing book? Are you a
Ooh,
reader actually?
I'm not a reader at all. That's so bad. The only thing I did read is the one from Alice de Courcy. I listened to the podcast, which is Diary of a CMO, which I really love. That's so much knowledge. Like literally, like she's reflecting on her 4 years at Cognizant, which was the first one, and now she has a second one out. I haven't listened to it, but it's so nice to just like because she really said like, okay, I did this then, and that was a mistake, and so it's very nice to like hear her reflect on like the choices he made, and it's like a 14 million AR company or something. So yeah, it's cool to see somebody so vulnerable in that position. So would recommend.
I'm gonna order it. Okay, what's your favorite marketing tool or software?
Ooh, I would say LinkedIn still.
It's crazy. So many people say that because, to be honest, and I don't know, I hope they don't punish me for this, but it's like a shitty platform.
Oh
It's
yeah, UX wise, it's horrible.
they have the market, every decision maker is on there, but UX, UI,
Messaging.
yeah, oh, it's so horrible. And then they wonder why people use third-party tools. It's
Yeah, it's crazy. Like they could really like control the whole space if they wanted to, but it's Microsoft, like, and it's yeah.
Yeah, and also like for example, last week I wanted to do thought leader ads for the two founders of the company I'm working with, and yeah, there was an issue. I've ran it 100 times, and for one reason or another, I couldn't find it. It didn't work, and I had like calls with 3, 4 people from LinkedIn, and yeah, they couldn't solve it themselves. Like,
Yeah.
which is really weird that they don't know the platform themselves.
Yeah, and a lot of the people working there that are in sales, like I know a couple of them, so I don't want to be disrespectful, but they're so junior and they've never worked in like a rough position where they teach you how to do outbound, and then the courses they give you are just like, oh, that's such a shame. This could be so much better, I think.
And then the last one, what advice would you give to people that are just starting out in go-to-market, growth, marketing, and that want to make an impact in companies? What closing advice can you give them?
For me, like everything is available online. Like I think YouTube is I'm a very much a YouTube guy. YouTube is such an amazing source. If you find a couple of like the guys that are really good, like the Erics and Jordans, like those people that are really like giving away the stuff for free. They have YouTube channels where they literally walk you through everything. So that's also how we do it. Like Clay was new, so nobody knew how to do it. Like now you kind of like understand how it works, etc. But like in the beginning, like go to those channels and learn those channels. I think there's so much stuff available online that yeah, it doesn't matter what you did in school because they don't know it. Like I have never even like the big ASOL whatever, they probably never heard of Clay. So, but it's all available on YouTube. So
I was in ASL, so shh.
yeah,
But I was the
but
first
yeah,
that.
yeah. So, but they don't know it. So, like, they won't
No,
teach
no,
you
they
as
don't know
well.
it.
But it's all available on YouTube. So that would be my biggest thing. Like, keep learning, and I think YouTube is your guy.
Okay, cool.
Or
So nice.
Yannick's workshops, obviously. Like, if that's like
Absolutely. I was waiting for that. So that's amazing. We're gonna do a workshop together, right? You feel that coming? We can already soft announce it here, I guess.
a soft launch. Wow.
For the people that are still here, yeah, thanks first of all. But we're also going to do a workshop together anytime soon. We still have to figure out the topic, but we feel that we need to do something. So yeah, Louis, first of all, thanks so much for making the time for sharing a lot of your knowledge with people. I think it will trigger a lot of enthusiasm to at least get testing with outbound strategies and tools like Clay, etc. Yeah, where can people find you if they want to read more from you or to hear more from you?
Read more from me. I don't have much available. I'm very good at yapping. So if people want to yap against me in a call, please do. Just reach out on LinkedIn. I'm very open to have conversations, not necessarily if it's just questions. And definitely if people are junior, I really like to help those people because I think like it's nice to do. And I think people that are eager to learn, I'm definitely here to help or just like bounce ideas. And also everything I say is not a science. Like I'm very open to feedback and people confronting me on certain stuff. So yeah.
All these
Yeah.
CRM founders in your inbox tomorrow.
Yeah, I had a Salesforce admin yesterday
Beware.
that was like going very heavy against me, and I was like, the
What
fact
are
that
you
you're so
telling
pissed,
people? Who are you?
yeah, the fact that you're so pissed about this makes me wonder that I'm actually hitting on something. So
Yeah,
that's very nice to see.
you should print it on a t-shirt.
CRM is dead.
Yeah. Okay. No. So thanks a lot, and yeah, talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Have a nice
Bye bye.
day.